Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I would like to gift my book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance to you at goldenkey.gift, where you can get the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD at checkout.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome one and all. I am super excited that you've joined me today on what is always a beautifully magical today. And you know how you can make today extra beautifully magical? By intending it to be so. Each and every day, you can wake up and intend for this day to be a day where you experience magic, the magic of the being that you are. You can intend to start paying attention more to the universe around you, to the messages and the symbols that the universe, that your higher self, is always giving to you. We are always being bombarded, actually, completely bombarded with our environment from messages from our higher self, from our guides, from all of those who are helping us. They're just here with us, trying to help us understand our own journey. And because they can't do it for us, oftentimes they speak to us through our environment. Now, in the past, we used to think that these synchronicities were just a coincidence. And I think that we've evolved way past that point now where we understand that nothing really is a coincidence. There is meaning behind this so-called coincidence, which we now call synchronicity. And if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, you know exactly what synchronicity is and how important it is. And so synchronicity is one of those easy ways where our higher self starts getting our attention. So typically they can't give us this big sign that really catches our attention, but this is one way that they can, because it throws us off guard because we think, well, that was weird and that's pretty strange. And how did that line up like that? And that's a really rare coincidence, right? And so it gets our attention and it gets us thinking. And it's these exact things that our higher self is trying to promote within us. They're trying to promote our seeking journey. And each and every time this opportunity is provided to us to take a look and to really examine further this reality that we live in, then we strengthen our will to look further. It's really a beautiful design, how they don't help us and help us at the same time. The beautiful thing about everything being symbolic is that we do need to figure it out on our own. It is extremely empowering when we can figure out what these messages are on our own. And when we do the work to be able to get to this place where we can trust ourselves to really believe what the messages are that we are getting. And the beautiful thing about it, too, is that each and every one of us gets our messages individually. We get them in the way that they are appropriate for us. And so if we resonate with a certain thing, then those symbols will be used to guide us in that message. They're always trying to give us messages. It comes down to how much are we paying attention and how much effort and work are we putting into our own selves, to our own journey, in order for them to even help us out a little bit more. Synchronicities are one of the most beautiful ways, too, for us to know that we are on the right path. I know for myself that when I started this journey and I really started meditating and doing all of these practices where I got to understand myself, I started seeing numbers over and over and over again. And it got so commonplace that when I didn't see them, I knew that something was a little off and that I had to get back into balance. And so constantly seeing these numbers to me was like, yep, you're doing the right thing. You're going on the right path. Now, they don't always mean that to me. Sometimes if there's a specific situation going on, or I'm even heading into a situation, I might see specific numbers to let me know what's coming forward, or to remind me of having a certain energy in my intention for the day. So it just depends what these numbers mean at that time. But what you can do, and it's super easy, is just ask. And you don't need to be in a meditative state to ask, although maybe your answer will come through a little clearer if you are in a meditative state. But oftentimes we can ask in the shower, if we're just sitting in contemplation. Maybe we're driving, which is a kind of altered hypnotic state as well. So you ask the question, and then you trust the very first answer that comes. What does this mean for me? What are you trying to tell me? And then oftentimes you can even define it for yourself and then tell your guides, this is what I think. I think you're trying to tell me this. So if you want me to think this, then show me this again. Because from now on, I define this symbol to mean that. And they will absolutely 100% play with you in that regard because you're taking the effort to work on yourself. You've defined that they don't care what you use. They'll use whatever that you're going to get the message from. They don't care. Only we care down here. It's only important to us. These symbols are around us all the time, all day. It's just, are we paying attention? These synchronicities, they come in songs, they come in animals, they come in numbers like I was just talking about. They come in all sorts of different ways. Maybe it's even strangers saying random things to you. That happens a lot. So I wanted to pull up this book that I have. It's called Synchronicity, and I remember that I had it on my bookcase, and I've actually never read it. But I picked it up today because I wanted to talk about synchronicity and how important it is in our lives, because it is one humongous way that our higher selves are really showing us more of an intense sign than, say, through our dreams, which can also be intense. But this really kind of gets our minds thinking and gets us in that direction of what does that mean? And that's really important because that's the whole point, to get us on this journey of what is my purpose here? Am I fulfilling my purpose? And what can I do to help myself and help others along this journey? So I really liked this book a lot. It is by Alan Combs and Mark Holland as I paged through it. And this little chapter that I pulled, and I'm going to share just a couple of little excerpts from it. It's called A Golden Beetle, Carl Jung and Synchronicity. Jung sensed from the beginning that meaningful coincidences were merely the surface effects of a deeper, more holistic reality. He saw in synchronicity a clue to a marriage between the essence of human nature and the external world of physical reality. He used the medieval term unus mundus to refer to this tacit unitary reality, one world which must exist behind the poles of spirit and matter. He also found this marriage represented in the Chinese notion of Tao, an unmanifest unity that underlies, organizes, and patterns all that is manifest. Jung felt that our connection with this holistic ground of reality occurs at the level of the unconscious mind. This is not surprising that he regarded meaningful coincidence as a symbolic of unconscious activity. Jung himself introduced the term synchronicity, and by it, he specifically meant coincidences which mirror deep psychological processes. His best-known instance of synchronicity, for example, is rich with meaning. This is now the familiar case of the golden beetle, in which a local variety of scarab beetle was heard tapping at his window at the very moment a patient was recounting a dream about its sacred Egyptian relative. I opened the window, Jung later wrote, and caught the creature in the air as it flew in. He observed that the scarab is a classic example of the birth symbol, suggesting the idea of self-transformation and rebirth. This is exactly what Jung's patient was struggling with at the time of her dream, and the appearance of an actual beetle was enough to break her psychological blocks and allow her to move toward her own transformation. This is exactly the beautiful purpose of a synchronicity, to help us move forward along our path so that we can transform ourselves. We are always constantly cycling, transforming, making anew. Again, we can do this every single day, and especially if we're paying attention. These concepts that we are trying to learn that we already know deep down within our minds, he's calling it the unconscious mind. I like to call it the deep mind because it's just deeper down there and a little harder to get to. But it's not unconscious. It doesn't mean that your consciousness cannot access it. It absolutely can. It's just a little deeper down there. And oftentimes it's just those resonances or feelings within us that give us that hint of that thing to look to in our deep mind. And these synchronicities are also helping us, working with us. It's our spirit guides and us ourselves working together with this world in order to make all of this happen. How magical is that? There is only one of us here, after all. So it goes on to say, in another little section of the same chapter, the fact that synchronistic coincidences may express a common form and meaning in both human consciousness and in the physical world, as was in the case of the scarab beetle, implies that the origin of such coincidences stands behind both of these realms. This suggests that synchronicity is rooted in the deepest level of the mind or psyche, the unus mundus. Jung referred to this level as a pseudo-psychotic or psychoid state, since it is not strictly psychic, but partly physical as well. The psychoid state lacks articulation, representing a fusion of both inner and outer reality. In it coexist all past and future possibilities. Out of it come those exotic processes that Jung is famous for, the archetypes. These are concentrations of psychic energy, universal in their essence, which manifest as particular themes or motifs that emerge from the unconscious. Jung used the term collective unconscious to refer to the universal collective aspect of this level of the psyche to exert a dramatic influence on conscious experience and behavior. Jung believed that the activity of an archetype is what triggers a synchronistic coincidence. An archetype is a potential for a particular theme or image which lies dormant until triggered by some situation in the environment, in the conscious or the unconscious mental life of the individual. Then it resonates like a bell, its chords heard and felt throughout the personality. Archetypes can be experienced in oneself or projected onto others. An example is the hero, embodied in figures such as Arthurian knight Sir Lancelot, or the hero of a cowboy movie or a detective story. When such images touch and excite us, it is because they resonate with this archetype. So it's kind of like what I was just saying. When we really are affected by these concepts, these energies, these ideas that come into our world, there's a very, very good reason for it. And it goes on, Jung viewed the inner world of the psyche as a mirror of the outer world, referring to the deep unconscious as a collective living mirror of the universe. At the psychoid level, the outer and inner worlds are fused in fundamental unity. Thus, archetypal expressions arising from this center carry not only inner, but also universal truth. When we meet such expressions in our own lives, we experience facets of reality that are mythic in scope and in significance. Archetypes are so incredibly important. It's one of my favorite things to study, one of my favorite things to teach, which I do in my workshops when I do conduct them. And if you have the opportunity to study archetypes, I highly suggest it. It can give a lot of direction along our journey, a lot of direction in understanding who you are, and why you behave the way you do. And there's lots of different ways to study the archetypes. And it goes on just a little bit more to say, in Jung's thinking, the activation or awakening of an archetype releases a great deal of power, analogous to the splitting of the atom. This power, in the immediate vicinity of the psychoid process from which the archetype takes its origin, is the catalyst for the synchronistic event. There is a buildup of energy at this most primitive and undifferentiated level of personality. The energy flows, triggering the synchronistic event. The idea is that the activation of an archetype releases patterning forces that can restructure events both in the psyche and in the external world. This restructuring proceeds in an acausal fashion, operating outside the laws of causality. The power that is released is felt as numinosity, a literal sense of the divine or the cosmic. So that is a whole lot for something to be a coincidence. All of this working together, all of this energetic outflow, your inner being, your higher being, the external world around you, all mirroring one another, all helping for you, for us, for every single one of us, because there's not a single one of us that this does not apply to, all helping us, helping ourselves to get it, to understand, to remember. It's all around us, mirrored in our world, deep within our unconscious. We see it in the movies we watch, in the books that we read, in the things that people say to us, in the songs that we listen to, in the animals that come and visit. I remember talking about bees not too long ago, and this week it was a 2-day, or maybe it was just a 24-hour period where the bees came back into my life. And actually, they didn't just come back in. They came into my house, opened the front door, bee comes in. We had to get a nice little cup to get him out. same thing in my office. Open the door, there's a bee right there. And there was a third one, and I'm not thinking it right now. But this is not a coincidence. The bee is coming to give me a message. Same thing as that roadrunner that was in my backyard last week that I talked about. Not a coincidence. These little birds don't just come into your backyard and yell at you. There's a very good reason why that happened. And yes, I paid attention. It's extremely important that we pay attention to these things, because if we don't, then what's the point of giving them to us? And they're not going to give up on us. They never give up on us. But they will turn it up a notch if we do start paying attention. And you all know how much I love the Law of One, so I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the Law of One says about synchronicities. They say, picture, if you will, the increasing potential for learned teaching. At some point, a sign will be given indicating the appropriateness or importance of that learned teaching. The entity itself, in cooperation with the inner planes, creates whatever signpost is most understandable or noticeable to it. Sounds familiar at this point, right? Entities consciously do not create these. The roots of mind complex, having touched and understanding intelligent infinity, create them. So that's kind of a mouthful for basically saying everything that we already talked about today, that the intelligent infinity of the universe that we have within us, when we have touched an understanding, when you've within our being have an understanding of that intelligent infinity in the very deep root of our mind. Now, again, this is an unconscious thing that's happening. It's very deep. We might not really know it's happening specifically, but we have energetically touched this understanding, so we don't consciously create it. It's this unconscious thing that we have this understanding of. We don't even really get it yet. And the synchronicities are here to help us with that understanding. I find it so incredibly beautiful that we're all working together, the entire universe, ourselves, our guides, our higher self, all working together along this grand plan, creating these patterns for us to see out there in our world. The patterns are so incredibly important to pay attention to. If you're seeing patterns, the pattern is really containing the answer. So ask the questions. If you don't have any idea what's happening and it's really confusing, stop thinking about it and ask. And you'd be surprised how simple the answer can be. And trust that answer. Always trust that answer. There is no other answer than the very first answer that comes. I love you all so, so much. I'm going to leave you with a song for today. This is Symbolico with Symbolic Expression. Until next time, I love you all.
Also, before we cue up today's song, as a quick reminder, don't forget to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.
symbolic expression.